All right, let's continue your learning journey and really focus on some key terms that are going to help you broaden your understanding of generative AI and build that confidence to be able to talk about generative AI at the workplace. So this is a term that you may have already heard before. It's a very popular term, model, and you can't have AI without models. But oftentimes people talk about models and they just kind of move on. They don't really describe it. You'll hear things like, oh, ChatGPT's next release is going to have the biggest model ever, or maybe Claude's a better model than OpenAI's ChatGPT. And it's like, but what is a model, right? So let's define it. A model is a computer program that learns patterns from data to perform a specific task or solve a problem. So the fact is, most models are designed to do something, right? That could be solving a problem, performing a specific task, or even performing general tasks. For example, if you are on Netflix, you often are like, what should I watch? That is a problem. Deciding what to watch is a problem for Netflix. So they need to help people decide what to watch. Therefore, they have an algorithm that is a model that is designed to solve the problem of what to watch. It's going to look, these models have learned patterns from your data, whether that's your preferences, your behavioral patterns, other data that they're using. The model has learned from that to predict what you might want to watch. Now, whether it gets it right is a completely different conversation, but that's what that model is designed to do. It's designed to solve the problem of what to watch. Then we have models that perform a specific task. So think of facial recognition. This is the goal with facial recognition is to identify people. We're going to put aside the creepiness of that, but the goal is to identify a person. So the model learns patterns from data, and this data is images of people in order to identify certain people based on certain characteristics. It's a specific task. Then we have performing general tasks, and this is really where the generative AI models come in. These are tasks like create text outputs, right? If you think about ChatGPT, that's a general model. The goal of ChatGPT is to give you a text output based on your text-based input, right? So when you tell the model, hey, create an email to tell my boss I'm quitting today, and you get a beautiful email that tells your boss you're quitting today, that's a general model that can do many tasks, right? You can then turn around and say, hey, write me a meal plan for the next 7 days. And oh, by the way, could you write the grocery list for me so I can make those meals, right? So this model does a general task, but within that, many, many other tasks too. So that's what a model is. But I want you to think about them as pattern seekers, because models are sophisticated learning systems that capture the intricate patterns and relationships within data. Now I've got the next video is going to talk all about data, so we'll dive into that then. But what I want you thinking about is how the models create these patterns from the data that it is given. So the model is looking for patterns like reoccurring themes, relationships, structures in the data. We are not telling the model what to look for. We are letting the model figure it out on its own. Right? So it creates this collection of knowledge about the problem it needs to solve or the task it needs to do. This isn't a list of facts. It's not a step-by-step instructions. It's a complex web of patterns that the model has learned from its training data. Now that you know what models are, this is what they look like. Kind of boring. This is a list of models from the website Hugging Face. Now, this is not a website you need to know. You're not going to be interacting with models this way, but it is interesting to kind of see what it looks like because it's a very abstract concept, right? What is a model? You don't really see it. And you can see up at the top what I want you to pay attention to where it says models. There are 74,000 plus models out there. Pretty wild, right? So that is what models look like, but that's mighty unhelpful for us because we're not data scientists or engineers. So let's talk about how we interact with models. Anytime we talk about models, we're often talking about generative AI and vice versa. A lot of times when we talk about generative AI, we're referring to models. But what I want you to think about is generative AI as you interact with it through software products and features, right? Because you, as the user working with generative AI, you are going to be interacting with it through products and features. Okay, so you have software that contains generative AI. It could be the entire software. It could be, like Microsoft has generative AI features. Either way, in there, that generative AI is going to consist of three things: model, data, and the training process to get that data into the model. Now, I'm going to cover training and data in the next videos, but that's what we're talking about when we talk about generative AI, those pieces right there. And those pieces are always going to be part of a software product that you interact with. We'll do more on what that looks like in future videos when we get into the actual tools themselves. But this is an example of it. You see on the right here, ChatGPT. You are interacting with the model through software, right? You're not going directly to the model. You're actually just interacting through software. The same with Midjourney. You're interacting with the software through a user interface through a piece of software. So that's how to think about models. I want to talk real quickly about popular models. In the short amount of time that generative AI has been out to the masses, the public, we have name brand models, which is wild if you think about those 74,000 models that you saw a list of earlier. And some of them are OpenAI 3.5, 4. There's also 4.0. Those all power ChatGPT. By the way, there's no test on this. You don't need to know. They're just useful to know if you hear someone referencing them, right? If someone says, "Oh, I think Claude is better at generative AI," or has better output, it's not your coworker, right? But they're talking about Anthropic Claude, which is also the name of the product. Claude is the chatbot, but it's also the model, and it gets confusing. The same with Pi. It's also a chatbot, but also their model. So it's messy out there, and if you haven't followed that, that's okay. You don't need to know this, but I like giving you context. There are also different products and models for different tasks. So within our models of design for specific tasks and general tasks, within the general tasks, there are different types of models for generative AI. So Midjourney and DALL-E are for image generation. They have not been trained on textual data. If you ask, for a text output, you're going to get an image with some gibberish on it, right? It's not been trained. It's not learned patterns from textual data. Replit and GitHub Copilot are for code generation. You wouldn't ask it to write you an email. Runway is for video generation, Suno for music generation, and these are just examples. And then sometimes you have models that can do multiple things. That can switch between tasks. For right now, all you need to know is there are different products and models for different tasks. And sometimes the models are referred to by the company name. So that is the landscape of models, and there's your definition for models. We're going to spend the next 2 videos talking more about data and training. Training is how you get the data into the model so it can learn those patterns. So let's get on our way.